Welcome back to SethFM, simulcast on YouTube. I am as ever your host and guiding light, Seth McDonough. Ordinarily on SethFM, we enjoy teasing our radio rivals at CBC Radio because we find them to not only be biased, but so confident in their supposedly progressive presentations of modern society and values that they seem not to burden themselves with ever considering any possibility of counter-argument. And we find that to be worrying because no matter how well-meaning an ideology is, if it is unencumbered by criticism, it can go wild. To paraphrase the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, paraphrasing the philosopher John Stuart Mill, a person who knows only their side of an argument knows little of that. Recently, though, I came across a podcast which seems to me to be considering more than one side of an argument, and that is a philosophical podcast called the Platonic Verses. And in it, Plato's teacher and main character, Socrates, takes on various challengers to his intellectual throne, and the result is rather entertaining. In fact, I was very excited when I came across this podcast because I was hoping that Socrates might weigh in on some of our modern social justice issues, and sure enough, in the first dialogue I came across between Socrates and a fellow named Euthyphro, apologies to Euthyphro and your mom if I've mispronounced your name, but anyway, in that dialogue they take on a concept which I think is a perfect analog for a certain tricky identity politics issue of today. So I'm going to play a little of that for you now. Hey, Socrates!
Oh, hi,
It's Euthyphro.
Oh, yes, hello there, Euthyphro.
Euthyphro.
Pardon me, sorry, Euthyphro. How are you, young man?
Well, I'm off to court, I'm afraid.
Oh, what a coincidence, so am I.
Oh, yeah? What's your excuse, Socrates?
I'm afraid I've been charged with a bad bout of impiety. Apparently I've been corrupting the youth with my philosophical investigations.
Bad luck, Socrates, but I'm sure you'll be able to talk your accusers down.
Well, I don't know about that, young man. They seem quite confident in their denunciations, and I have no reason not to believe them. In any case, what's brought you to court? Accused of corrupting the elderly?
No, it's quite the opposite, actually. I'm accusing my dad.
Euthyphro Sr.?
Yeah, I'm accusing him of negligence causing the death of one of our servants. I'm indicting him for murder.
Your own father?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me who pollutes justice. If I think he's guilty, I'm prosecuting.
I see.
But here's the annoying thing, Socrates. My own family and my own father are accusing me of being impious for indicting him. But of course, I can't be guilty of impiety. I'm one of Athens' foremost experts on piety.
I see. Well, I'm very sorry for all the trouble, Euthyphro, but as it happens, your details are rather fortuitous for me, because as I told you earlier in this very conversation, I myself have also been accused of impiety. But unlike you, I'm not at all an expert on the subject, so I wonder if I might impose upon you to give me a little tutelage on the nature of piety.
If you haven't met our Socrates before, he sort of pre-patterns himself after one of those semi-bumbling modern detectives, such as a Columbo. Columbo would do that with various witnesses and suspects to bring their guards down, allowing them to ramble about things they might otherwise not have, such that Columbo can then pounce when he spots a contradiction in their testimony. Similarly, Socrates will build his interlocutor's confidence by claiming to be naive himself so that they can teach him, and in so doing, he inevitably catches them in a philosophical contradiction. Yeah, sure, I've got a few minutes. What would you like to know, Socrates?
Well, I'm just wondering, in regard to piety, what is it?
Oh, well, Socrates, it's very complicated. In layman's terms, it's many things. Yes, the it's complicated avoidance technique. In fairness, some things are complicated, but I would think that if you're claiming to be an expert on a subject, you would at least have some topic-taming skills that would allow you to give a little bit of information about a subject. But don't worry, our friend Columbo Socrates is on Euthyphro's case.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Euthyphro. That's very helpful indeed.
Any time, Mr. Socrates.
I suppose, though, there are many things that are many things, but often there is one primary feature of a thing that makes it intrinsically that.
I don't follow you, Socrates.
Pardon me, I'm ever so unclear. I suppose what I mean is that for every identifiable attribute, say being a great general, while there are many competencies that could help to make the general great, there is, I imagine, a defining characteristic that must be in place in order for one to qualify as an elite general. For instance, perhaps the general must win more battles than he loses.
Yes, Socrates, I suppose that's true.
And so, in the same way, might there not also be a particular ever-present feature that makes something definitively pious?
I see what you're saying, S-Man. Yeah, I'm sure there is a chief feature of piety.
Wonderful. And as an expert on piety, you surely know what that is.
Undoubtedly. I just love how Socrates uses the weight of his opponent's egos against them. I've forgotten more about piety than most people will ever know.
Excellent. And would you mind elucidating that prime feature for me?
I suppose. Well, if I had to pick one definitive feature of piety, it would be an action that is loved by the gods.
Splendid, Euthyphro. That is a clear and helpful answer. Thank you, my friend. I wish you a great day at court.
Always happy to help, Obi-Wan Socrates. Have a great day in court yourself.
I'm sorry, before you go, Euthyphro, another confusion just popped into my head.
Sock it to me, Socrates.
Well, wouldn't you say that the gods themselves are often at serious odds with one another?
Surely so.
And aren't such odds usually derived from a serious disagreement over something that matters?
No other, Socrates.
And so, given such godly disagreement over such vital subjects, wouldn't it be the case that that which one god might love is also something that another god might hate?
Exactly right, old-timer.
Yes, and didn't you just tell me that piety is that which is loved by the gods?
Your memory is spot on, Socrates.
So if you're correct that what one god loves can be hated by another, then wouldn't that mean that a thing can be pious because it is loved by the one god, and simultaneously impious because it is hated by a rival god?
It must be so, Socrates.
So your definition of piety hasn't told me as much as I'd hoped, because on your account, that which is pious can simultaneously be impious.
It seems you're right, my friend.
My dear Euthyphro, I wonder then if you could try again to answer my question, and this time I ask you to teach me the intrinsic nature of piety, which would be true no matter which god is observing it.
Okay, I'm going to stop Socrates there in his investigation of piety. Poor Euthyphro. He will attempt to recalibrate his definition of piety, but each time he does, Socrates will again find his answer to be empty, and so eventually Euthyphro will announce, Socrates, I do know the answer to your questions, of course, but I really have to get to court, and so he'll leave Socrates stranded with no more wisdom on the nature of piety than with which he began. But I'd like to zoom in on Euthyphro's first answer to the question about what piety is. There he suggested that it is what is loved by the gods, which Socrates pointed out creates a contradiction because some gods love one thing while other gods love another, and some hate what the one does, and so on. And I think that is a perfect analog for certain identity expertise claims in our modern disputes, because certain pundits at CBC Radio and other social justice institutes will tell you that when it comes to matters of social justice, the experts are those with the correct identity. So by dint of their tint, or by flex of their sex, or by sender of their gender, certain people are authentic because they've had certain experiences that allow them to know not only the nature of reality, but also what should be done about it. Let's go to Hannah Gadsby with an explanation.
This world, a world full of good men who do very bad things and still believe in their heart of hearts that they are good men because they have not crossed the line, because they moved the line for their own good. Women should be in control of that line, no question. Now take everything I have said up unto this point and replace man with white person.
If we were to channel Socrates, well, I can do it as Socrates if you like, I think he would note that for every identity designation, be it race, sex, sexuality, etc., there will be members of that demographic on every side of every policy dispute. In the case of feminism, while it's true that many of the leading feminists are women, it's also the case that many of the leading critics of feminism are women. Simply put, for every ethical dispute, there will be gods disagreeing over what the right answer is. So I contend that instead of measuring an argument by the color of the person presenting it, we instead consider the content of their ideas, of their arguments, of their evidence. This isn't to say that anecdotal evidence can't be taken into account. If members of a demographic claim widespread abuse or injustice, I think we should see that as a possible symptom of something we should investigate. But to presume righteousness by identity alone is incoherent, as proven every time Zeus and Hera disagree, because they both identify as gods. If you see Socrates' point on this one's for Euthyphro.